I'm finally filming another video. I can't tell you how many times I've sat down in the last week or two, gotten so far as to turn the camera on, and then decided or ended up not filming anything. But I am back, and I have a tag video here. I was tagged by the Paperback Junkie to do the Book Hoarding Tag. This tag was created by BiblioAtlas. I will link both the Paperback Junkie and BiblioAtlas's videos in the description. There are 7 prompts. It's been a while since I did a tag, so there are some new books here finally. For a while, I felt that every time I was doing a tag, I was dealing with the same titles, rehashing the same books, and so I stopped doing them for a while, but this one has caught my interest, so without further ado, prompt 1. A book you should get rid of but have trouble for some reason. Why? Proud to have read it? Was it a gift? Want to read it? Emotional attachment. I readily get rid of books that I know I'm never going to read again and that I don't have an attachment to. But this is kind of a strange one. I decided to go with the APA style guide and the MLA style guide that I have on my shelves. It's absolutely ridiculous that I own those because I have never used them. When I'm doing citations, I use a website, I go online, everything that I really need in my day-to-day writing for citations is available online, and yet I still have my APA style guide and my MLA style guide on the assumption that someday, what if I really need them? Because, you know, they're not available in libraries or anything. You can't just purchase them again. I need to keep them on my shelf forever and ever and ever, even though they were a little bit expensive and I have never used them. So that's prompt 1. Prompt 2, compulsive collecting. What book or edition would you covet or dream of owning? A rare book, signed, first edition, some other trophy find? So this one has to do with one of my more recent kind of rabbit holes that I've been following. I've been reading a lot of classic lesbian pulp fiction, classic lesbian fiction. I read the books of Anne Bannon from the 1950s. Now, I've listened to 2 of them on audiobook, but 3 of them I actually read in their paperback format. So, I Am a Woman, Odd Girl Out, and Bebo Brinker. Now, these are from the early 2000s or late 90s, these editions. And they tried to make them look vintage, look like the original covers, but I'm curious as to what the original paperback books would have looked like. And it's probably impossible because the books were made to be thrown away at the time that they were made. But I would love to own just the first paperback editions of those books that would have been printed in the 50s. Grab my tea again, and number 3. Safety among clutter. What book makes you feel cozy? So I went with a series for this again, because when I was about 10, I got into the books of Enid Blyton, specifically her adventure series. My favorite one was The Castle of Adventure, and I actually own all of these in paperback. They're at my parents' place, they're not here in Ottawa. But they always give me kind of a cozy, nostalgic feeling when I sit down to read them. And because they're children's books, they take me maybe an hour to get through one of them. But they make me smile, they make me laugh, they take me back to my childhood, back to just being that 10-year-old who would rush home from school so I could sit down and read. And I would read these over and over and over again. Question 4. Question 4. I went with the Mandarins for this one. The prompt is nostalgic memories. What book has a story? How you got it? Where you were when you read it? Impact? Just can't explain. So, The Mandarins, my copy right here, by Simone de Beauvoir. I purchased The Mandarins at Old Goat Books in in Kitchener, Ontario, which is near my hometown. And I purchased it just a few days before I moved out here to Ottawa, so that would have been last August. And it was the first book that I picked up living here in Ottawa. And I remember I had to be on campus for Monday for orientation for my graduate studies. And I arrived a couple days before that Monday, and I had a weekend to kill. So I spent the weekend reading The Mandarins by Simone de Beauvoir, and that was one of the first booktube videos that I filmed in this room here. It's surprising to think about it, but it is mid-July now, and in a month and a half I will have been living here in Ottawa for 1 year. Question 5. Don't touch my stuff. What book will you not lend out or have a fear of losing? Treasure the most, and why? I didn't actually pick a book for this one because I do not lend out my books. I used to people I trusted. And then we had what I call the love in the time of cholera incident. I lent out my copy of Gabriel Garcia Marquez's Love in the Time of Cholera to a friend of mine. It was an exchange at the time, so she lent me a book, I lent her a book. She would constantly check in, have you read the book yet, have you read the book yet? And I took about a month to get through it. And then I gave it back to her, and she hadn't started Love in the Time of Cholera yet. This was in September when I lent her the book. Next thing you know, it's Christmas, and I'm saying to her, where is my book? And she says to me, I'm going to have to buy you a new one. It's water damaged. So it was actually April when I got my new copy of Love in the Time of Cholera. So I'm very hesitant to lend out books again. Question 6. Procrastination, anxiety, quirky personality. What book is so delicious that you cancel plans to read, or would cancel? So it was when I was reading Radcliffe Hall's The Well of Loneliness just a couple weeks ago. I'm actually going to be filming a review of that book soon. I'll be posting it in the next few days. I might actually film that review later today, but The Well of Loneliness, I was listening to it on audiobook. I have since picked up a paperback copy because I loved it so much. But I had a date. It was going to be the third date with this particular person. And it was the kind of thing where I was saying to myself, well, I'm not really interested, but I mean, I could go out and have fun again. It was the kind of thing where, I mean, I'm calling it a date, but it was the kind of thing where he texted me and said, want to come over and watch a movie, that kind of thing. And I decided not to go at the last minute. I told him that instead of going over to his place, I would rather sit home and read a book and drink. So, yep. That tells you what kind of person I am. And my laptop has gone to sleep, which makes it hard to see the last prompt. Okay. Question 7. Impulsive buying. What book did you buy completely unplanned and on a whim? Why? Will you read it? Did you already get rid of it? I impulsive buy quite a lot. Probably about half of the books I own were bought on impulse, and I do read most of them. I rarely get rid of a book without reading it. First, I like to think I have good taste, but in this case, this is one that I bought on an impulse 2 weeks ago, and it is Troubling Love by Elena Ferrante. This is the first book that I've read by her. She's the author of My Brilliant Friend, that trilogy that people seem to love so much, and it was a very, very good impulse purchase. Basically, it's about a woman in middle age. Her mother has died under somewhat suspicious circumstances. It's ruled as a suicide. She goes back to her hometown, to her mother's apartment, to take care of things, to kind of think over and unravel what may have happened in the days leading up to her mother's death. And she encounters people from her past. She encounters a a man who seems to have been stalking her mother. It's a very interesting novel. I think I was actually crying a bit at one point. So I would definitely recommend you pick that up if you're interested at all in Italian literature and translation, or just in a good piece of literature, I guess. So that is all 7 prompts. I'm sitting here realizing I forgot to make a list of people to tag. So I'm just going to skip that part, and if you feel like doing this, consider yourself tagged. I am going to finish my tea here.